Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today guys we're going to be jumping down into the world of Cardano's ADA, reviewing the price action on the 1 hour, daily and weekly timeframes, taking a look at some data on chain, taking a look at recent news and developments and talking a little bit around trades as well. Now as I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, do smash that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel here on YouTube, why not go ahead and subscribe, and if you're watching this on Twitter, why not give us a like and a retweet as well. Really do appreciate that. Let's jump right down into the video for today, kicking things off with our 1 hour time frame. So here we have been tracking this impulsive movement to the downside. We were talking about hitting the low target of 29.26 to 29.32. This is something that was going to be our third wave movement to the downside, and for the most part we've completed this. We're bouncing up towards our fourth wave high. This looks like it has completed now as well, meaning that we are just looking for this final fifth wave move to the downside. So let's go ahead and find out what our expectations should be for this move. We should be looking at the Fibonacci retracement tool. We're looking for anywhere really between 1.236 and 1.618 on the extensions. That basically means 29.13 to 29.21. So we can see right in here, this is our expectations. Now, fifth wave movements can be a little bit complicated at times. Essentially here, sometimes we might find ourselves with an ending diagonal, we might find ourselves with an expanding diagonal, we might just find an impulsive movement, we might find a contracting diagonal, right? So there's a few different things that this can be. But for the most part, we're targeting out the 29.13 to 29.21 cent area. And unless we truncate, as in we finish our flat structure without coming down this low, for the most part, the expectations are here. Now, reviewing the current structure here is quite interesting to me, because if we take this down just to a 15-minute time frame very briefly here, we can see that we had this slip to the down, we bounced up. This move to the upside here is not unusual. That's perfectly fine. But measuring this distance here and moving this over to the wick high that we have on this wave 2, the theoretical wave 2 high here, we can see 29.22 being our third wave expectations, meaning that if we're tracking this as an impulsive movement, we're looking at it like this. We'll have a little wave forward, then come down a little bit deeper, meaning that we are likely to see that, to 29.13 cent area. If we take this now back up into our 1 hour time frame, you can start to see here that we will be looking at coming right down into this deeper range under a 5-wave impulsive pattern. So it's going to be interesting to keep a close eye on that. So I'm going to remove the fibs there so we can kind of see how that looks. We'll get a bounce up and then we'll come back down a little bit deeper. Now, on this hourly chart here, looking to finish off this fifth wave move, we can also acknowledge that we are correcting our stochastic RSI. This looks like it's actually a pretty respectable area for us to be back down in that oversold range. So I hold out to say 29.13 to 29.21 is the most likely scenario here on this 1 hour time frame. Now, as we kind of scale this up, we'll take this up into our daily time frame, because when we finish this structured move to the downside, we should be thinking about some kind of bounce upwards. Okay, and I do think we are looking at that quite nicely there. This correction here on our daily time frame is a little bit bigger here. We are in lower highs and lower lows. Okay, this isn't a problem. It's not overly too problematic at all, to be honest. And we can see here that things are coiling up, nicely. Essentially here, we'll look for a small bounce before potentially coming back down just a fraction further. I'm looking for this as either a B wave movement or an A wave within a B wave with a bounce for the B going up into a C. So let me kind of try to articulate that differently, right? We're either in a move that looks like this, we've got to come down a little bit deeper, or we are in a move that is basically already completing a B wave and then we're going up into that C high, right? Now, with this, I think we have the probability of a bit of a move to the downside through this structure first, but we'll know more as time progresses. Essentially, we're looking for a bounce upwards on ADA, and we are going to be looking at breaking out of this downward move here at some point. Ultimately, I'll be looking at this as potentially a completed structure here to the downside. And taking a look at it, it doesn't look like we really need to come down and breach this low down here at 28 cent. I think that's going to hold. So to me, that looks like it's okay and not too bad. And also makes me wonder whether or not we've actually completed this with a slightly truncated C wave here. Ultimately, I'm looking for a break out of this downward move, and this will potentially turn us into a slightly bullish structure overall, specifically on these larger timeframes. There's a lot of volatility to be expected on the kind of hourly charts and 4-hourly and so forth, the smaller timeframes. But when we're starting to talk about these larger timeframes, they're not actually in bad positions. We might see a little bit of a slippage to the downside along with the TA that we can see on the small timeframes. But ultimately, we can see for Cardano here that we actually have a really strong area of demand that we can see right inside this little range between 28.22 and 29.10. Essentially, this area here is an area of demand. We can see every time we've come into this range, we've reversed right out and we've bounced up quite nicely. So we're looking at this as holding as a good strong support area where we'll then be looking for a break upwards. I do think that is something that we are likely to see. However, this is still a bearish structure and we shouldn't kind of, think otherwise until we see a very significant surge to the upside that breaks out of it. Ultimately, my concerns here are that we do have a nice bounce up, right? We break up towards, maybe, 32 to 35 cents, something like that, maybe even tapping onto the 200 EMA up here, only to break on back down at a later date, right? We'll have to obviously review how that kind of plays out over time, but for the most part, that's going to be one of the big concerns that we have for Cardano here on these particular timeframes. Let's go ahead and take it up into the weekly timeframe, because here we can actually see, as I was talking about previously, the areas of interest, right? 15 to 18 cent. Now, that I know a lot of people don't want to see that, as well as a lot of people who do want to see it, right? It's kind of a mixed bag because a lot of people do want to kind of accumulate ADA. And, personally, as I've said many times before, if we're below 30 cent in ADA, I feel that we should be dollar cost averaging, right? This isn't a say that you should just hold out for 15 cent ADA. It's just an area that I think we are likely to visit over the next few months or so, right? Over the next several months, we are likely to see this move to the downside, in my opinion. We haven't really broken upwards. We've not broken out of any potential trend line that we have to the downside. We're below the 200 EMA, which is our trend filter. Essentially, our structure here from an Elliott wave theory point of view is also telling us that we're expecting a Z wave move downwards. Ultimately, there's a lot of negativity to be seen from the price action point of view. That being said, we're below 30 cent, and dollar cost averaging strategies have worked out incredibly well for many retail investors over the last few years, and that isn't likely to change. Dollar cost averaging is a good strategy, and ultimately, if you're looking at building a position in Cardano's ADA, that is probably one of the best ways you can go about doing it. Just slowly building up your position, and as price comes down, you're dollar cost averaging in and you're lowering your average purchase price over time, rather than just holding out for one particular price point that may or may never come, right? Ultimately, I do think personally we're going to end up at 15 to 18 cent at some point, but it's not a guarantee. We cannot guarantee such a thing. Ultimately, we have recently set new bear market lows, as you can kind of see over here in June of 2023. And I suspect, based on our structure, we still have further to go to the downside. Now, this interesting thing about this 15 to 18 cent, as I was talking about previously, is this previous area of resistance that I think is likely to turn into support. So this is an obvious area for the price action of ADA to reverse, and is an area that I think we are likely to hit. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. I cannot give anyone financial advice. All I can do is give you my thoughts and opinions on the data in the charts as I personally see it. So you can do with that as you see fit. If you have access to a financial advisor, you may wish to consult them, as they probably know, how you should be, transacting yourself. They'll have your information, your data. I don't know what your circumstances are or anything like that. So just bear in mind, dollar cost averaging strategies have worked incredibly well for many retail investors, as such has, swing trading and things like that. But ultimately, I personally think there's going to be lower in price, but I hold a very significant position in ADA as well. So I'm okay saying these things. You do what you do best. Only you guys would know what that is. Let's go ahead and bring up the data side of things. So for those who know, we have a membership website, membership.cheekycrypto.io. Link for that is in the description below. Here we have access to all sorts of various different things for our members, right? So we do AMAs twice weekly. We do technical analysis on request. We've got two analysts down in our Discord server who chart up technical analysis on different cryptocurrencies, and our artificial intelligence that I've coded will basically create trading ideas on the back of that, and a whole host of other things, including course materials such as Elliott wave theory, portfolio building materials, through to risk management, smart money concepts, and of course the data. And we're going to be talking about the data elements here. This is on-chain data for Cardano. If I load that up here, you can kind of see the overall view of ADA, all-time high at 310, 709 days since the all-time high. We're 90% down from the all-time high. We can see that there's 35 billion tokens in circulating supply, all the way through to there being 51,000 transactions in the last 24 hours that only had a cost of $5.3 thousand, which is just astonishing, right? And so we have some really good on-chain data here for Cardano. We can take a look at liquidations, which are really minimal, as in there's not that much going on from leverage positions on ADA. We can, of course, acknowledge that there's 122,000 in the last 24 hours, of which Binance was the exchange with the most amount of liquidations on Cardano at $65.54 thousand. 91.15% of liquidations were long positions, with 8.85 being short positions. This basically tells us that there's a lot of retail investors out there just going long because they believe that they're in a bull market, and they're not respecting the idea that actually everything is in balance. There's a balance between going long and a balance between going short. You can't just go in one direction all the time. And ultimately, we can see here that there's been a lot of liquidations within that. Binance, as we said, took 53% of the liquidations. 𝗕𝗘𝗪 was in second spot, and 100% of positions on 𝗕𝗘𝗪 were long positions that were liquidated, and they liquidated 23.7% of the total. Essentially, $29,000 of liquidations occurred on 𝗕𝗪𝗪's exchange, of which all of them were long positions. 99.95% of long positions were liquidated on Bybit as well, right? So you can see that there's this idea that essentially, go long on the market. We're in a bull market, go long, go long. But actually, there's a lot of data here to suggest actually, although there's some good prospects for long positions, this isn't the best time to be entering into the long positions. You need to respect the structures that are there, and that's kind of where that one has sat for quite some time. So let's kind of go ahead and take a look at some other data that I am going to be bringing into our website, but it's not here at the moment, and that is going to be the total value locked. As we can see, we're currently sat at $178 million of total value locked when it comes to Cardano, and that is quite an astonishing number. Now, it has come down a little bit since we were over here in July, and it was hovering at a pretty decent number of 209 million. Okay, but it's come down. Now, what's interesting about that during these times is price action has obviously changed quite a bit as well. But when you take a look at it from a Cardano ADA standpoint, well, things are rocking and rolling very aggressively. Currently sat at 608 million ADA in total value locked. So the amount of ADA basically being locked up is a real big catalyst for future price appreciation. We have to consider that everything that happens with Cardano is to do with supply and demand imbalances. Essentially, what we're looking at here is a shrinkage of the supply that is available for purchase, right? So we think about all the supply of ADA, which is 35 billion tokens, right? Some of that is delegated, state, and helping decentralize the network. Some of that here, as you can see, 608 million ADA is locked up in total value locked through DeFi applications. We can see down here where it all sits. And this is actually really astonishing because it means that as price of ADA goes down, we can see that it's actually holding a really good total value locked value in USD because the amount of ADA that's being locked up is increasing. So this is just astonishing because the amount of ADA that is being locked up is going to create a huge catalyst for upside price action at a later date. It isn't going to happen right now because we need to see an increase in demand at the same time as the supply shrinking. But ultimately, this is going to be a big catalyst for things to come. Now, we jump into the news here. We can also see that Cardano ADA has unveiled key milestones towards full decentralization. They're not going to read this entire thing, but there's a few things that are probably worth just kind of picking out on. We can see that the core technology teams have introduced a new node on the Sancho Net Development Network. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. This move brings Cardano's community closer to understanding governance features outlined in the major CIP 1694, right, 1694. Now, to ensure secure node integration, a special measure called Bootstrap Peers has been in place, basically marking a step towards wider system distribution. In the world of transactions, which we spoke about, I think, yesterday, where we've seen a significant surge in transactions, the Ledger team has been fine-tuning how transactions are handled during the Conway era. Additionally, the Plutus Tools team has been busy enhancing the capabilities of the 𝗲𝗪, enabling them to basically perform better. So efforts to scale Cardano have yielded very positive results thanks to both Hydra and the Mithril teams as well. So there's a lot of things going on in the background for Cardano, and I do think this is going to be a big catalyst for things to come. Now, as we kind of progress into that next section for Cardano here, we will need to talk about exchanges. There's many different exchanges that I guess sell Cardano. That's probably a really bad way. That allow you to trade Cardano is probably a better way of articulating it, right? Because the exchanges themselves do not typically just sell cryptocurrencies to you. You're being paired up with other people in the space, right? And there's always a sum zero. So what we mean by that is that there's always a buyer, there's always a seller, right? And so these order books have to be kind of considered. And this is really what we're talking about when it comes to that supply and demand, right? So you go to any of these exchanges, or most decent exchanges anyway, are going to show you order books, and you can see where people are selling and where people are buying. And typically you can find imbalances in that, and you can go for liquidity hunting. There's so many different strategies that can be applied. Ultimately, though, you're having lots of different people all around the world trading ADA, right? And these trades are basically people who believe that price action is probably going to go down, so they're going to sell their ADA to someone who thinks the price is going to go up, right? And they're buying the ADA from them and so forth. And so ADA is changing hands. Now, when we have a significant amount of ADA being delegated and staked, that basically reduces the amount of ADA that is available for purchase. And when you see the total value locked growing in terms of ADA as well, you can also see there's a significant shrinkage of supply there as well. So as demand comes in for people wanting to buy ADA and there's not enough supply of ADA or enough people there willing to sell it, the price is going to try to go up and find where those sellers are. Those sellers are going to be selling at a certain price because they feel that's where the value is. And so ADA will be sold at a particularly higher value. And as such, during the increase in demand and the shrinkage of supply, you're going to see some very explosive price action, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to exchanges, it's going to be important that during these bullish times, when they do come several months in the future here, that you have access to as many of these exchanges as you possibly can. Now, 𝗕𝗘𝗪, as you see on the screen here, is my go-to platform. This is a platform that I use for pretty much all of my leverage trading, 100% of my leverage trading, and 90 to 95% of my spot trading, including Cardano ADA. Ultimately, there's many different exchanges. I have accounts with Bybit, 𝗕𝗘𝗪, Bybit, 𝗕𝗘𝗪, Binance, Coinbase, too many B's. That's the problem here. Bitfinex, Bitmark, Bitstamp, and so forth, right? And KuCoin and Gate.io and so forth, right? And it's important that you have access to as many of these exchanges so that when the time comes, you can log on to your platform, your most favorite one, hopefully. Some platforms might not be available. They might be under such heavy load that the whole entire website goes down and you can't log on, you can't transact, you can't sell when you want to sell. So it's important that you have access to other ones, right? Other exchanges that you can use as backups as well, right? So 𝗕𝗘𝗪 is my go-to platform. There's affiliate links for 𝗕𝗘𝗪 down in the description below. There's also links for Bybit, Binance, and so forth, right? And join us down in our Discord server. We have a whole host of other exchanges as well that we use as well. But ultimately, 𝗕𝗘𝗪 is my go-to platform. I find it very easy to use. There's an affiliate link in the description down below. If you do use that link to sign up to 𝗕𝗘𝗪, if you haven't yet done so, I do encourage you guys to do that, to basically use that affiliate link and grab the $8,000 bonuses that are available depending on how much you deposit and trade on the platform, and take advantage of that, because these offers are not going to be around forever. And whilst they're here, you should potentially take advantage of them. There's lots of legislation changes around exchanges, KYC, and all these things. So get familiar with the platform, understand the risks that are involved in trading, and do some education. There's lots of dummy accounts that can be created inside of things like 𝗕𝗘𝗪. For example, we can come over to the trade area. I think we have, is it under one of these? There's like an area where you can actually test out. I'm pretty certain it's under trade. It's going to be under one of these areas where you can basically test out and do some dummy accounts and work out your trading strategies, see what works for you, what doesn't work for you, all those things, and learn about the risks of trading, risk management, and all that kind of stuff as well. Like I say, affiliate links are in the description below. Check them out. If you haven't yet signed up to 𝗕𝗘𝗪, you need to get on this one, in my opinion. Ultimately, it's going to be setting yourself up for success in the future. But I'm not a financial advisor, as I say. It's entirely up to you as to kind of what you do there. Consult a financial advisor if you have access to one. Ultimately, these are just my thoughts and opinions on what I would personally be doing. I have access to a lot of different cryptocurrency exchanges for that exact reason of making sure that I set myself up for success in the future. Let's go ahead and start talking a little bit around trades. Now, as we kind of say, there was some trading opportunities to be seen, right? Not so much on these larger timeframes, although you can if you wanted to. Ultimately, we're going to be looking at this potential low point down here within our range of 29.13 to 29.21. This is going to be a potential long position, right? So we want to go long on the market. As we were talking about all those liquidations, we saw a lot of long positions getting liquidated, right? We're going to be looking at potentially creating ourselves a nice trade opportunity within this, right? We're finishing off our structure. It's a C-wave structured move to the downside here, as we can kind of see. It has this 5-wave pattern internally within it. I expect a bounce upwards towards the 50 EMA. This is going to give us a risk-reward ratio of about 2.51 if we have a good, nice, tight stop loss on this, okay? I wouldn't probably enter it yet. I would be waiting for us to see the ending structure. Look at the 15-minute time frame, the 5-minute time frame, find where we're likely to find that 5th wave movement ending, and then try to get into a long position there. Okay, so it's a bit too early to do this, but it's something that I would be thinking about trying to do. Obviously, members within our membership.𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗏.io website and our Discord server will know the kind of things that we're going to be looking at within the patterns of data within Cardano. So there's going to be some good trading opportunities on the back of these recent moves on the 1 hour time frame. So if that sounds of interest to you, do sign up to a 7-day free trial on our website. The link for that is obviously in the description down below as well. Guys, I think I'm going to wrap this video up right there. If you have found it useful and informative, smash the like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.